Hey there, it's been a while since we've done a video, so I thought I would just talk a little bit about one of the fastest growing segments in mixers, and that is kind of the stage box or iPad mixer. And so these things are getting really popular, and with good reason. It lets you get into a digital mixing format without quite the expense that is normally associated with digital mixers. So in the last few weeks I've had a chance to work with two of those, the RCF M18 and the Behringer XR18. So a little ding there for my computer. We'll show you that in a minute. But so I thought I'd just give you kind of the pros and cons of each one. They're both good mixers. You know, I've had good results with both of them. There's just a few differences that are worth pointing out, you know, that are pros and cons either way. So we'll start out with the RCF M18. So this is a nice little mixer. This is great. I've used it on a couple gigs. You've got 8 XLR, 2 of those are combi jacks, and then you've got 10 1/4-inch jacks, and then you also have a thumb drive style USB slot, as well as your standard aux outs and everything else. So one of the greatest things about this guy is this Wi-Fi router. It's got a really serious dedicated router on this guy. It's a dual band, 2.4 and 5 gig. There's the external antenna, which is pretty sizable, and then there are also internal antennas. So the Wi-Fi in this thing is excellent. I can go all over the building and further than you'd want to be from the stage and actually still run this thing. So I love that about it. The app, and that's really where the rubber hits the road on these things, is your app and how usable is it. So the app is quite a bit different between the two. You know, there's still the same familiarity between the two. And just get to the faders here and get to the mix. One thing is the unclutteredness of the RCF. It's just clean. When you go to that main fader page, it's just the faders, and that's pretty much it. And then to get to any of your processing, you can just go here and you've got your processing, like your EQ. I'm going to actually try and angle that down. Remember to do that for the glare. But so you got your standard EQing and your input gain. I really like the input gain controls on this guy. It's a big chicken beak knob looking thing, you know, it's kind of old school looking, and that's just really nice. It's there it is right there, that big chicken beak right there. That's a really nice. I've got tons of control on that input gain. One of the most important functions of the mixer is getting that input gain precisely set the way you want it, and that lets me do it really well. Really basic dynamics processing. The gate and compressor are more of an old school rack style looking thing with knobs on it, as opposed to some of the more visually oriented digital representations you see of compressor and gates. So pro and con there. There is a one knob compressor on here or a full extensive compressor. So that's kind of nice if you're a novice at these things. It does give you that one knob option, which is kind of nice. What else do I love about this thing? I love the play and record. This is really just a great simple feature. That USB jack on the back, it's for a standard thumb drive. So I can load a thumb drive up with music, and I can actually access all those files here, and that plays back through that thumb drive channel with its own separate slider on the mixer section. That's really great for your background music, for music in between speakers if you're doing a corporate gig, any of that kind of stuff. This one here will happen to, I've got the rack ears on there. We're going to install that in a school. They'll load up their warm-up music and the national anthem and just always have that available for them on the thumb drive and be able to access it right from their iPad. So that's a really nice, great feature that I love on this guy. The other things that I really like on this, I love the simplicity of it. You know, this is a mixer that I could set up a guy and maybe spend 20, we're fixing to find out, 20 or 30 minutes training with someone who has just a basic knowledge with an analog mixer, and have them running here pretty quick. You know, it's got some nice features, but it's not so extensive that it's overwhelming. The app is absolutely flawless. I've never had any glitches or anything on it. It isn't quite as extensive, so I can't go around and switch routing. It's got great effects, but there aren't like a million effects. It does have a really nice amp emulator in it, which is really cool. It's got guitar amps plus bass amps. So if I'm plugging my bass or my electric guitar straight in there, I can actually have a nice 5150 PV guitar amp in there with a 412 cabinet, all emulated within the app. So that's some really cool stuff. So that's my pros on this thing. That also kind of can be the con, is we just don't have quite as much of that capability like you would have with, say, a full PreSonus 1642 or a 2442. So, but it's super simple, and it sounds great, and it works great, and it's just flawless in its operation. So that's the M18 from RCF. Great little mixer. Now let's talk about the other one, and this one might actually be kind of the standard bearer, which it seems, after all these years, to say Behringer's a standard bearer in something seems it doesn't roll off the tongue naturally. We'll put it that way. But they have done a great job with this mixer, and that's the XR18. So the XR18 has 16 XLR combi jacks, and then it has these two 1/4-inch jacks. Now, technically, I would call this a 17-channel mixer, because these two are tied together. There's only one slider for these two, both these jacks here, so it's really 17-channel. That's one thing, long pet peeve, but I do love about the RCF is you could actually call it a 20-channel mixer, because you've got the 18 jacks plus that left and right in for the USB drive. So anyway, back to the physicality of it. Here is your router. And that's the big drawback on this guy, and you'll read all the reviews, and that's the one thing that's pretty common thread on all of them. This router sucks. There's just no other way around it. It is weak, it is slow, it is terrible. Fortunately, you can just plug an external router in right here and go with an external router. Don't even bother with this router. I'm just being flat honest with you. Cool thing on this guy, you do have that doghouse USB out. That actually will send 18 tracks of USB audio to your DAW. So if you hook your computer to this, you can actually record straight into whatever workstation you're running. And so that's a really cool feature on this. So that's kind of the physicality of the thing. On the app, it's a super extensive app on the Behringer. And again, that's a pro and a con. Here's your main screen here, and you can see it's a fairly cluttered screen. Okay, so there's a lot of information on there. That's good. I can see a whole lot at the same time. The slider throw is a lot smaller on this as opposed to the RCF. The RCF is this nice long throw slider. The other thing on the RCF, by the way, is if I just tap above or below the slider, it goes in 1 dB. I wish that this had that. But it doesn't. This does have nice colored scribble strips that you can color code. I think that's a great feature. Mute groups is fantastic on this, so that ability to have mute groups is great. Sometimes they do a little too much, and so this can be a little bit overwhelming to some folks. You know, if you're, I won't say I'm a mix whiz or a mix expert, but I've got quite a bit of experience with digital mixers and processing. I don't find it that overwhelming, but I can see where some people might if they don't have a lot of experience with it. So that might be a drawback, but also a strength, because you do have just a ton of options on here. Sometimes options that shouldn't be there, like for instance, you can change the parametric EQ, the very high frequency, you can change that to be a low shelf. Why would I ever want that? It drops the entire rest of my signal chain, everything below, you know, the 16K or whatever you've got, down 12 dB. Why would you ever want that? But it's there. Okay, so some things like that you kind of go, what? So it's got some great features and very in-depth processing. And one of the other cool things I do like about the Behringer is there's actually a app for your computer, and so that's really nice. This last weekend we had the Fight the Flames Festival, raising money for victims of a fire that happened here locally, and I was able to set up the whole show on my computer before I even plugged in the mixer, so it went really quick to change. I think we had 7 or 8 different performers, and I was able to change those scenes because really quick, because I already had them loaded up on my computer, and it's just a drag and drop. The input gain, that chicken knob that I love on the RCF, it's a little teeny tiny knob on the Behringer, and it's just not very responsive. I don't care for that much. Now if I have your computer hooked up, it's a really nice slider, and I can really get precise with that. So saying it's a bad thing, but it's an overcomable bad thing. Overcomable, new word. So there we go. Just kind of the pros and cons of both of these. I think the niche on both of them, they're kind of different niches. If you're a smaller group that maybe just mics your kick drum, and then you know, your guitars, you might mic one of your guitar amps, plug your bass straight in, or use the in the out on the bass head, and then a couple vocal mics. I think the RCF is a great little unit for that. RCF is a great unit for corporate gigs where maybe you've got a few vocal mics, a headset, a wireless, and then you just need playback music and a computer feed. Excellent mixer for that. You could do some full bands that don't mic their entire drum kit with this and not have any problem at all. It's a real plug and play kind of thing almost. So to me, it's a very simple learning curve. Does everything that a digital mixer should do in the basics. So you're getting all that channel dynamics processing, all those EQs, all those great things that make digital mixers so awesome in there, but in a real simplified format. So I think that's a really great niche to have. The Behringer, if you're a band that mics your whole entire drum kit, you're going to want the Behringer. So just because of that number of XLRs. Just be prepared for a learning curve. Now, this learning curve is no greater than any other traditional digital mixer, but it's there. And so if you're not willing to put in that time, I probably wouldn't mess with it. If you're willing to put in the time, the rewards are really great on the Behringer. There you go. There's pros and cons on each one. I think they both have a very good place in the marketplace. The RCF is flawless. I have to tell you, the app is I've never had a glitch. The router's great. You can just go. The Behringer, I will say that along with that router just being the worst router developed by man, with the exception of a can with a string or something. The router's terrible. The app can be a little glitchy sometimes, and so sometimes I would experience a little delay, or I'd select one thing and it would cause a change somewhere else. So there can be a little bit of that, and that's kind of the Behringer thing. Sometimes is things usually work pretty well, but sometimes they are a little questionable. Now that said, I had nothing catastrophic happen at any show that I've done with the Behringer. It's been a good little mixer. So pros and cons on each one. I think they're both really good products, and we're glad to sell both of them. Speaking of which, you can swing by and check them out right here at Lou Krause Music, beautiful downtown Ogallala. You can check us out on the web at yourmusichq.com. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, check out our Reverb store, all that kind of great stuff. So there you have it. Stagebox iPad controlled mixers available right here at Lou Krause Music, and we hope to see you soon.